Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. I had just given birth to my daughter 10 days ago when my husband, Aaron Miller, forced me to divorce him because his beloved white moonlight, the woman he had always longed for, Lily Parker, was pregnant and desperate to marry him. I begged him to think of our newborn child, pleaded in every way I could, but he ignored me completely. I even told him that the baby growing inside Lily wasn't his. Furious, she lunged at me, and in the struggle she miscarried and bled to death. 15 days later, my daughter and I were run over by a truck. Aaron immediately signed the papers refusing emergency treatment. "You killed my son and the woman I love," he said coldly. "Do you really think you deserve to live? You and your daughter will pay in blood." When I opened my eyes again, Aaron was holding Lily in his arms as she screamed at me, her face twisted with rage. She shouted for me to stop having delusional thoughts and to stop clinging to Aaron. I sneered and said, "Stop praying like a donkey. Just split the assets and let's go our separate ways." I died on Aaron's birthday. That day, I carried a birthday cake I had bought for him, and my daughter held a gift she had chosen herself for her dad. The two of us were cheerful and full of hope as we headed to the hotel he had reserved. It had been 15 days since I gave birth, and this was the first time he said he wanted to celebrate his birthday with us. My daughter and I were both so happy. As we crossed the street, a truck suddenly sped straight toward us. I instinctively pushed my daughter away, but it was too late. The impact sent us flying, and the driver fled the scene. When I was rushed into the emergency room, I still had a trace of consciousness. I saw Aaron running toward me, and with all the strength I had left, I whispered, "Save our daughter." He laughed coldly. "You made me lose my son and the woman I love. You think you deserve to live." Then he leaned close to my ear and said in a low voice, 15 days. Finally, I can collect this blood debt. This is retribution for what you and your daughter did to Lily and my son. I rushed here," he continued, "because I didn't want to miss the chance to see you die with my own eyes." After that, he pretended to be heartbroken, told the doctors he couldn't bear to let his wife and daughter suffer through more pain, and with tears streaming down his face, he signed the documents, refusing further resuscitation and declining to pay any medical expenses. My daughter and I could only wait for death. Later, Aaron took our ashes to Lily's grave. Kneeling before it, he murmured, "Lily, my son, I've avenged you both. I've brought the sinners here for you. Please punish them from above. I want them to atone for their sins forever." Then he poured our ashes into the dark trench beside her grave and invited a priest to perform a ritual curse, condemning us never to be reborn. The truck driver who caused the accident and fled was from the same hometown as Aaron Miller. He confessed that he had been momentarily blinded by the sun and didn't see us. Aaron claimed he didn't know the man, then said anyone could make mistakes and deserved a second chance. He personally signed the forgiveness letter on behalf of the victim's family, allowing the driver to escape criminal charges. Not long after, Aaron remarried. The bride's face looked almost identical, 8 parts out of 10, to his white moonlight Lily Parker. At the wedding, Aaron wept as he thanked his new wife for saving him, for pulling him out of the pain of losing his wife and daughter. All the guests were deeply moved by his supposed devotion, but none of them knew. The wife and daughter he spoke of weren't his legal wife and biological child at all. When I opened my eyes again, the calendar showed October 1st, 1990. I had just given birth to my daughter 10 days ago. I was still in confinement. My baby had just finished nursing and was sleeping soundly. On TV, the drama Desire was playing, Grace Lynn gazing tenderly at Victor Wong. From the neighbor's house, a cassette was playing a fitting song. "You're the one who loves me most. How could I make you sad?" It should have been a beautiful, peaceful, sunny day. But before my eyes there was a couple standing before me. 2 people so dazzling and arrogant that it made my blood boil. 1 minute before I was reborn, Aaron Miller appeared at my door with Lily Parker, shattering the peaceful scene around me. Their faces were exactly as I remembered them, his cold and condescending, hers smug and self-satisfied, as if daring me to do something about it. Just like before, they had come to force me into a divorce. Aaron said there wasn't a single penny in this house that I had earned, and that since I'd given birth to a daughter and couldn't carry on the family line, I should hurry up, take the baby, and get out with nothing. I was terrified. I had been a radio host at the county broadcasting station, a stable job. But because I came from a poor family with no backing, I had depended heavily on my husband. Back then, he told me he would love me for the rest of his life. And I believed him. He asked me to quit my job to focus completely on taking care of our home and our future. I agreed without hesitation. And now he wanted me to leave with nothing. They had money, power, and connections while I had none. I couldn't fight them. But I had no job, no savings, and a baby still nursing at my breast. If I divorced him, where would I go? How would I feed my daughter? This was the early 90s. Divorced women with infants had nowhere to turn. I cried and begged Aaron not to divorce me, sobbing that what he was doing was cruel and unfair. All of this happened exactly 1 minute before I was reborn. That minute still only had 60 seconds, but I was no longer the same woman I had been. Aaron sneered at me, calling me a wild boar, saying I wasn't even as good as a pheasant, but still dreamed of becoming a phoenix. He told me to get out immediately and make room for his new love. Lily rubbed her belly with a proud smile, her syrupy voice dripping with mockery. He doesn't love you anymore. Why are you still clinging to him? Don't you have any shame? Look at yourself. Do you think you two even belong together? I smiled faintly and looked at the pair of them. My voice was calm but cutting. You're right. We don't belong together. But Aaron Miller and Lily Parker, now that's a perfect match. A cheating husband and his mistress, two of a kind, made for each other. Aaron froze for a few seconds before realizing what I had said. His face twisted with fury. How dare you talk to me like that? You must have a death wish. If this had been before, when I depended on him to survive, I never would have dared to talk back. But now, I had been reborn, carrying the hatred of both myself and my daughter. All I wanted was revenge. I looked him straight in the eye and said evenly, people like you without shame or conscience still get to live comfortably. If a woman can sleep with another woman's husband and still show her face in public, then why shouldn't I want to live? Lily's voice rose sharply. Who are you calling shameless? Say that again if you dare. You're the shameless one clinging to a man who doesn't love you anymore. I chuckled. Funny, I didn't say anyone's name. I didn't even point a finger. Yet you're the one who jumped up first. Guess that means you know exactly who's shameless here. You dared to talk about being honorable? I added with a sneer. Fine. Let me make things truly honorable for the two of you. They thought I was joking, convinced they had me under control. Then I turned toward the open window and shouted at the top of my lungs. Everyone come take a look. My husband, Aaron Miller, is having an honorable affair with this woman. Lily Parker, come see for yourselves. To be honest, I almost had Lily to thank for this. During postpartum recovery, I wasn't supposed to open the windows and let the wind in, but she had purposely flung every window in the house wide open the moment she arrived. We lived in the staff housing complex where Aaron's father worked. The moment I shouted, voices stirred all around me. People at once began to peek out to see what was happening. And just then, every neighbor's radio fell silent. The windows of all the apartments flew wide open toward the sunlight. I smiled and asked, so considerate official, are you two honorable now? Aaron's face flushed red. He grit his teeth and snapped, Emma, you're making me despise you all the more. This marriage will definitely end in divorce. Clinging to me is useless. I shot back, clinging to you? Is it because you've got that huge face I love or that paunch or that 3-second bravado of yours? Aaron couldn't believe I would say such things. He immediately raised his hand to strike me. Domestic violence, huh? Fine. I wasn't afraid. Cruel people only fear someone who's desperate. I'd been waiting for the chance to let loose. He took a step toward me and I gathered all my strength and delivered a solid kick to his chest. The kick was sharp and true. Aaron fell to the floor, gasping, unable to recover. Lily moved to help him up, but because she was pregnant, she dared not exert herself and fumbled, unable to lift him. The two of them thought that would be the end of it. They were wildly mistaken. I turned to the window and shouted at the top of my lungs. Everyone, come look. The county director's son, Aaron Miller, is beating someone. Come see. They were stunned. They could not have expected me to be so reckless. I used to be proud to the point of swallowing my own blood when I lost a tooth. But now I'd finally snapped. Panicked, Aaron and Lily hurriedly slammed the windows and doors shut. But I laughed loudly and called after them, "Don't close the windows. If you shut them, who will see you two being so honorable? That honorary sign plastered up in the Forbidden Fruit Hall was pre-made for you 2 centuries ago. Go hang it up. Go on." Aaron's face, already dark, went purple with rage. He clenched his fists and asked in a cold, poisonous voice, "Emma, what exactly do you want?" I looked at their dramatic, self-important expressions and thought they needed one good public shaming to vent this fury. Who said only I had to endure mastitis, huh? Now they were the ones anxious. I felt no hurry. I hummed to myself a mocking tune about winding mountain roads, 18 turns, and joked that if I didn't make them real, then living 2 lives would have been wasted. Seeing me calm and even singing, Aaron exploded. "What nonsense are you singing? What do you actually want? So you'll agree to a divorce?" Then he started cursing at me, vulgar and rough. I scoffed. "Shut up and stop polluting the air. Someone like you, trash like you, still has people who crave him. If you want a divorce, list the assets. Split them quickly and then each goes their own way. Don't stand there bleeding like a donkey." Enraged, Aaron barked that I could take whatever he gave me, that I had no right to make demands. Asking for an itemized list of assets? I must be dreaming in broad daylight, he sneered. I retorted contemptuously, "You're wrong. It's not what you want that matters. It's what I want." Lily's face immediately contorted. She cried out miserably, "Shameless woman. On what basis do you deserve a share? This entire house. Did you earn a single cent of it?" I narrowed my eyes and replied to her, "You ask what I rely on? I am still in the nursing period. The court can't grant a divorce right now. You couldn't even wait until my confinement ended. According to the policy now, if you don't marry, the baby in your belly, even if it survives, won't be able to be registered." Aaron ground his teeth and snapped at me. "The house on East Street is enough, isn't it?" I smiled. "How could that ever be enough? Half of the property each is only a starting point." Lily Parker went insane when she heard that, screaming, "You filthy beggar. Begging yet still complaining about stale rice, getting an inch and wanting a yard." I replied, "Lily, you little third wheel. You're absolutely right. If you get an inch, you should press for a yard. I miscalculated before. 1/2 isn't enough. I still have to raise my daughter, and there are 3 people in this family. My daughter and I occupy 2 shares, so the starting point should be February 3rd. Lily flew at me in fury, grabbed my hair and screamed, "Who are you to call yourself the other woman? Who? Huh?" I waited until she actually touched my hair. Then I said calmly, "If I kick you now, it will be legitimate self-defense. Say, do you think the baby in your belly will survive?" Hearing that, Lily immediately pulled her hand back and clutched her stomach to protect herself. I continued, "Even a mistress should have some self-awareness. This hair on my head was born to me by my parents. Am I right? Do you want to keep the baby, or are you going to compensate me?" Then I turned to Aaron and said, "About what just happened? Your mistress laid a hand on me. Remember, my daughter and I are the weaker party and deserve protective compensation. So 2/3 of the assets. No, make it 3/4 and we can negotiate. Frankly, you're the one at fault. It's natural you should leave empty-handed. But since you're so eager to become a father, I'll leave you a little. If you want a divorce, think carefully about my terms. Discuss them between yourselves, then come to me. Don't keep yelling and making headaches." I also warned them not to drag it out. In a few days, Lily's stomach would swell and the whole neighborhood would know she was pregnant before she could even marry. Then, who knows if Aaron's father's workplace would still accept him as a father, or if the head of family planning would allow them to have the baby. They were both stunned by my performance. They stood there like obedient children, listening to a scolding, both pale and slow to recover. Lily couldn't believe she'd only touched my hair, and I demanded an extra share of the estate. Her face drained of color. I felt exhilaratingly relieved and turned to go back into the bedroom. But just as I reached the doorway, Lily's voice called out in a strange tone from behind me, "Emma, have you heard? Last year, there was a divorce case where a greedy woman was silenced. She died horribly. She was raped and dismembered by the killer, who still hasn't been caught. Even if you have money, you still need a life to spend it with." I slowly turned back. Madness showed plainly on Lily's face. Clearly, because I refused to leave empty-handed, she was thinking of silencing me. She wanted to become Mrs. Miller and seize the entire Miller fortune. She believed that with money and power in this small town, she could treat people like me without backing as easy prey. In my past life I might have thought the same. But now, reborn with a bit of courage, I wasn't afraid of what she thought she could do. I looked at her and said, "That case will be solved eventually. But there are many other cases. Husbands who discover the child they raised isn't theirs and snap, killing their wife and child. Do you really think stealing someone else's husband will make you live longer?" Why did Lily Parker go pale when she heard that? The baby in her belly was the result of her actively chasing after some wealthy scion in Beijing. She wanted to give birth, so she gambled everything. But in the 1990s, having a child out of wedlock was extremely difficult. So she set her sights on Aaron Miller, a lovesick dog. The Miller family had power in this small town, but compared to the elite in the capital, they were nothing. The Cow family's hunger for power meant they were easy to manipulate and control. Besides, the biological father of Lily's baby was far more powerful than the Millers. Countless times she bet that even if Aaron later discovered the truth, he wouldn't dare do anything to her. But I could not bring myself to blurt out that the child in Lily's womb was not Aaron's. I worried that if Aaron confirmed everything, he might choose not to divorce me. After all, I had already mapped out a happy life for myself and my daughter after a divorce. I had lived 15 years more than they did and survived the turbulent 1990s, so I understood the country's future policies and how to make my life valuable. Those 15 years were golden. I absolutely could not be tied down by that lovesick dog, Aaron Miller. Lily had no idea that the hardest person to control in her plan would be me. She never imagined I knew the origin of the baby in her belly. She thought she'd hidden it thoroughly. But when she made a long-distance call, the person who answered was my close friend. In my previous life, when I learned of this, I told Aaron, the man desperate for a son. And out of anger, she lunged at me, slipped, miscarried, and died. No one could prove whose child that baby was. Instead, it made Aaron believe I had harmed Lily, leading to her death. In this life, I didn't intend to expose it. I trusted that one day the truth would reveal itself. I would let that baby be born and become undeniable proof so Aaron, the man who once despised daughters, could taste what it was like to wear a monumental cuckold's horn and suffer the humiliation. I saw the cruelty on Lily's face and smiled, warning her lightly. "So you're planning to silence me? Let me remind you, you're not the only person who knows this. Guess how I found out? Can you investigate that? I advise you to conserve your energy and stop scheming in the shadows. Be careful that you don't lose your life before you've even caught a tiger." Lily understood immediately that I was hinting at having people behind me. If she dared to act, I would have someone spread the news. She could not afford not to believe me. So at last she began to be afraid. As for that foolish Aaron Miller, he still didn't understand what Lily and I were talking about. His head was filled only with Lily and the unborn son. His brain could hold the Pacific Ocean. He still relied on his former authority to try to suppress me as before, but I had no interest in wasting time on someone like him. The whole room felt icy. I turned to Aaron and said, "Call your mother here to help with my confinement. Take good care of me so I recover. Maybe after my confinement, I'll have the strength to go through with the divorce. But if anyone prevents me from having a proper confinement, don't blame me if they never get to enjoy one again." Aaron shouted, "You filthy woman, do you want to fly to heaven? Make my mother serve you in your dreams. Eat dirt. You're ill-mannered. Your brain's worse than Lily's. Think carefully before you open your mouth. Lily, do you think my demands are too much? Or your mother can come during the confinement. Either way is fine with me. I'm not picky," I said with a faint smile. "Just make sure I eat well, drink enough, and stay healthy. As long as I'm taken care of, we'll be fine." In my previous life, I had been tormented miserably during my confinement period. My body weakened and I spent the following years in constant pain and sickness. This time both my daughter and I would live bright, successful lives. I would never again let my health be destroyed. Lily Parker's face flushed red as she grit her teeth. "You'd better remember what you said today. Once your confinement is over, you're divorcing him immediately." I smiled sweetly. "Lily, you really do know what's good for you. As long as you two follow my conditions, We'll file for divorce right after my confinement ends. Think carefully about all the reasonable terms I mentioned and stop coming here to disturb my rest. After all, I'm in no hurry. I can wait. Given that I'm the victim here, I'm already being remarkably generous. Don't you think?" Aaron Miller started to speak, but Lily stopped him. "It's only 20 days, she said under her breath. "Don't argue with her. Don't ruin our plans." The two of them stood stiffly, lifted their heads, and turned to leave. Not long after Aaron left, my mother-in-law finally appeared. My daughter and I were sleeping soundly when a loud banging on the door startled me awake. I turned over, planning to rest a bit longer, when the bedroom door suddenly burst open. This old woman valued men over women even more than her son did. Her face was dark and twisted with anger as she charged into the room like she was ready to pick a fight. In my previous life after Lily's death, Aaron had treated me with cold violence, ignoring me completely. But his mother, that wicked old hag, had been much worse. She hadn't nourished or cared for me. Instead, she forced me to serve the entire household, cooking, cleaning, and doing laundry while I was still recovering. Whenever she wasn't pleased, she screamed and insulted me. Sometimes she even refused to let me eat. Because of that, I couldn't produce milk for my baby. She mocked me for being useless. When I asked for money to buy formula, she refused. Even though their family was one of the wealthiest in town, they had plenty of money to spare. Yet she wouldn't spend a dime on her own granddaughter. "She's just a girl," she'd said. "Rice water is good enough for her." When I told her the baby wouldn't get enough nutrients, she sneered. "That's because she was born to the wrong mother, an unworthy one." Back then I had no means to support myself. For my daughter's sake, I endured the humiliation in silence, swallowing bitterness day after day. There were countless times I thought of ending my life, but I couldn't bear to leave my child behind. Once I even considered dying together with her. But when she looked up at me and smiled, her tiny head wobbling, I woke up from my despair. Now, a sharp gust of cold wind swept into the room as the door slammed open. I sat up and looked at the old woman, waiting to see what she wanted. She pointed a finger at me, her tone commanding like a superior scolding an underling. "I heard you specifically demanded that I come take care of your confinement. What about your own mother? Is she dead?" I smiled coldly. "Didn't you yourself, Mrs. Miller, once say my mother was a rude, low-class woman who'd never be allowed to set foot in your home, even if she died trying? And besides, I never specifically said it had to be you. Don't flatter yourself. You're not that important. I said it could be you or Lily's mother. I suppose your son didn't want Lily's poor mother to suffer, so he sent you instead." Her face went pale with fury. "You gave birth to a useless daughter, and now you expect me to serve you? What have you ever done to deserve that?" She dared to call my daughter useless. That I could not let slide. I glared at her, my voice cold and firm. "I'm in confinement right now, and anyone who offends me during this time I'll remember for the rest of my life. If you don't want to help, then leave right now before you regret it. Don't just take up space and do nothing, but don't send someone who can actually work away," I said. "I'll have Lily's mother come instead. She's younger than you and prettier, and my daughter will see her face growing up. That'll be good for her looks later. If you don't want to help, leave now. If my child asks later, I'll tell her her maternal grandmother died long ago." Aaron's mother, Margaret Miller, stared at me with eyes almost popping out, unable to understand why I had suddenly become so unreasonable. She'd forgotten the old saying, "Women are weak, but mothers become strong." I was fighting for my daughter's right to live. What was her cruelty to me compared to that? I had already died once. I wasn't afraid of her. Seeing her still planted in the doorway, I turned away, pretending I wanted more sleep, and said, "Quick, stew the chicken now. I'm hungry. Make the chicken tender. Add eggs and millet porridge with red dates. Brew the lactation tea early. Because your son dragged his mistress here and upset me, I've lost my milk. If anyone lets my beloved daughter go hungry, don't expect me to have the energy to get a divorce." The old woman's face flushed with rage and tears sprang to her eyes. I teased her on purpose. She didn't need to be so moved. Doing a little good for her granddaughter was meritorious. Maybe she'd live another 2 years for it. Her features twitched with fury as she stomped off to stew the chicken. Shortly afterward, Aaron burst back into the bedroom, furious, and shouted at me, Emma, don't go too far. If you push it, you won't survive the next 20 days. I looked at his contemptible face and replied, You idiot. Do you think I'm threatening you? Even Lily knows I have backup plans. You still don't get it. Your brain is only good for growing a shell. I had given birth to a daughter. It was a mercy to these two that I was being reasonable. He stayed planted at the door trying to act domineering. So I grabbed the bedside alarm clock, left there by his mother because she complained I slept through mornings, and hurled it straight at him. He didn't dodge in time. Blood streamed from his forehead as the clock hit the floor and the alarm began to scream, deafening in its peal. Hearing the noise, Margaret barreled back in, ready to avenge her son. But I said coldly, Isn't that what you said? What's a little blood? So your son's blood is worth more than the blood I shed giving birth. Aaron yelled. Emma, are you crazy? I answered with a chill laugh. Do you think this is crazy? I can be crazier. Want to try? Thinking about dying under that truck made me want to hurl Aaron into traffic and grind him under the wheels. Right now, I had to be crazier than they were so they would truly fear me. Aaron finally noticed the abnormal look in my eyes and faltered. I told the two of them clearly, Take good care of me and my baby through the confinement, divide the property properly, and finish the paperwork quickly. If anyone dares to scheme behind my back, don't blame me. I won't hold back. Now get out of my sight. Seeing you makes me sick. Aaron, go wash the diapers for our daughter. Don't think anyone's blessed. Being a father didn't fall from the sky. And tell your mother to stop being heavy-handed with me. If you can't persuade her, I'll have Lily do it. Aaron grabbed his mother and steered her out, murmuring for her not to waste time on a mad woman. I laughed loudly behind them as they left. Both their faces were as pale as paper. I knew then for sure they were afraid of me, but they couldn't do anything to me. Evil, after all, can only be tamed by something more evil. And that's exactly how my confinement period passed. Peaceful, satisfying, and frankly delightful. I ate well, drank well, and my daughter and I were taken care of with exaggerated caution, as if they were terrified I'd go insane if displeased. I had never felt this strong before, both physically and mentally. The best part was watching Margaret Miller's tearful, pitiful face and seeing Aaron tremble every time he looked at me. All the pain I'd suffered in my previous life, this time I made them feel it instead. The divorce and property division weren't easy. The Miller family pretended to agree to give my daughter and me 3/4 of the assets, but when Aaron brought me the property list, he had deliberately hidden a portion. I could almost laugh watching him tremble with regret, looking like every word out of my mouth tore another piece out of his heart. I pointed out one item after another that he hadn't listed. 2 vendor stalls at the market, a house in West City, and a savings account in US dollars. Aaron's hand shook violently. He looked like he was about to have a heart attack. Those were the assets I had been eyeing for a long time, the valuable ones. It had been 12 years since the reform and opening policies began. People were still testing the waters, too scared to take big business risks, afraid the government would change its policies again like before. But I knew better. 2 years later, the slogan "Develop the Market Economy" would be introduced, and the reforms would expand further. Foreign trade especially would become the new gold mine. Having US dollars to invest would be a huge advantage. And that house in West City, though a bit far from the center now, would in 5 years become part of the busiest commercial district in the city. As for those 2 market stalls, they sat on prime wholesale ground. Space so valuable it couldn't be bought, even with money. The Miller family tried everything. Threats, bribes, emotional manipulation, even false kindness, all to force me into surrender. They argued that those assets weren't Aaron's earnings, but the result of his parents' hard work. Really? I asked with a smirk. If those assets aren't Aaron's, then the question isn't who gets what. It's who the authorities will investigate first. That shut them up quickly. Then they tried playing the sympathy card, saying that the part of the property they wanted to keep was for my daughter's sake. I nearly laughed out loud. They were uncomfortable and so was I. But I was also eager to end this marriage. I had already planned everything. That winter I would leave for Beijing to start a new life. The end of 1999 would be a golden opportunity one couldn't afford to miss. During the 3rd negotiation, I quietly set things up. The night before, our neighbor, Mrs. Wong, came over to gossip with Margaret. She mentioned that in her village there'd been a woman who married into the city. When her husband got a new lover, he demanded a divorce. At first, he agreed to give her a share of the property, but later he found a way to take it all back. Margaret immediately asked, excited, "How did he manage that?" Mrs. Wong replied, "It was easy. The man had some connections. Just a low-level team leader, but he had pull. The woman opened a small store and he had it sealed off. He accused her of tax evasion and threatened to have her arrested. She got scared and handed over everything. A greedy woman like that needed to be taught a lesson. At first, everyone called the man heartless for dumping his wife for another woman. But once they found out the ex-wife demanded too much money, people started sympathizing with him. See, he got to dump the old wife, marry the new one, and keep his property and career intact. Not bad, right?" Margaret clicked her tongue and muttered that the man was no good. But her eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Margaret went back to her room and spent nearly an hour whispering with her son. When Aaron Miller finally came out, the first thing he asked was, "What do you even want with those market stalls?" "What do I want with them?" I replied calmly. "Obviously to do business, or do you think my daughter and I can live on fresh air?" By the third round of negotiations, the entire Miller family had clearly prepared for a final showdown. They took turns giving emotional, persuasive speeches, each more dramatic than the last, while I sat there serenely, listening without the slightest flicker of reaction. No matter what they said, sweet or threatening, I neither softened nor faltered. Then, right in the middle of it, our neighbor Mrs. Wong shouted cheerfully from the courtyard, "Hey Lily, you look like you've put on some weight." Lily Parker, whom I had deliberately invited to attend the negotiation, froze. The timing couldn't have been better. Mrs. Wong, loud as ever, went on to compliment her, saying she looked healthier and full of luck. The entire Miller family turned pale with fright. They still hadn't dared to let anyone know Lily was pregnant. I stood by the window and called out with feigned surprise, "That's true. Lily does look fuller these days, but you've always been so careful about your figure. How could you let yourself gain so much weight? What a pity about that slender waist you used to have." Aaron rushed over and yanked me away from the window before I could say more. In the end, the assets were divided exactly as I wanted. When I finally moved out, no one from the Miller family came to see me off. Only Mrs. Wong did. Tears welled in her eyes as she walked me all the way to the gate. She was a countrywoman like me. Before her husband became a city official, he'd started to look down on her, demanding a divorce. Outwardly, she was sharp-tongued and fierce. She'd even once grabbed him by the hair and dragged him to his office to confront his superiors. The security guards had to intervene to separate them. When she returned home, humiliated and furious, she tried to hang herself. I was the one who found her in time and cut her down. I told her, "You have to live for your child. Look at your son. If you die, what will happen to him? Do you really think a stepmother would treat him kindly?" From that day on, she treated me with real affection. "Emma," she told me, "since I moved to the city, you're the only one who's ever been kind to me. Everyone else looks down on me. You're the only good-hearted one. If you ever need anything, just ask. I'll do whatever I can. Kindness should be repaid with kindness. That's how you build virtue. But with cruel people, if you take one step back, they'll take 10 forward. If you give an inch, they'll take a mile." I arranged for my daughter to stay in the house in West City for the time being, and called my mother to help me take care of her. When she arrived and saw the state I'd been living in, she wept until her eyes were swollen. She knew I hadn't been treated well in the Miller household, but there had been nothing she could do. When she heard I was divorced, she grew even more worried. For her generation, divorce meant ruin, a life without peace or respect. My brother, honest and gentle, treated me well but was too soft to stand up for me. My father had died early, so our family had always been one of the weaker ones in the village. Only my sister-in-law, sharp-tongued as she was, ever managed to keep people from bullying us. When word of my divorce spread, gossip flared instantly. Back when I married into the city, the villagers had predicted I'd be abandoned someday. Now that it had come true, they finally felt satisfied. Their tongues wagged freely, as if the wind itself couldn't tear their mouths apart. After my sister-in-law publicly scolded several of them right at their gates, loud enough for the whole village to hear, the rumors finally died down. When I told her I needed our mother's help to care for my daughter, she said, "Nothing. Just packed a bag for my mother to bring along. It hasn't been easy for her," she muttered. "Mom, don't worry about things here. Just go and help Emma." The next morning, when my mother was leaving for the county, my sister-in-law, my brother, and their son all came along to see the town, as they said. But I knew the truth. They were afraid I'd feel lonely and sad after the divorce. So, they came to keep me company just to make sure I wouldn't fall apart. Having a little company around made me feel better, and seeing my spirits up, my sister-in-law muttered that worrying about me had been worth it. "It's harvest season. Go home first. Who wants to work fields in the dead of winter? Staying in the city costs money and only adds pressure." My sister-in-law had always treated our family well, even if her tongue was sharp. I insisted she stay, then took the whole family shopping for new clothes for the two little nephews and treated them to a meal. While we were eating, Aaron Miller showed up with Lily Parker. They'd already registered their marriage, so they acted bolder. Lily sneered. "Look at these country bumpkins. Sleep with a man and now get to eat in a fancy restaurant. Money just falls into their laps." Before I could answer, my sister-in-law leapt up to confront them. "What arrogance!" she snapped. "My sister sleeps with her husband. You sleep with someone else's husband. My sister makes money from her man. You sleep your way and lose everything. Bitter much." When my sister-in-law scolded them, the whole Miller family shrank back and fled the restaurant, leaving their untouched plates behind. I ladled soup for my sister-in-law, and she shot me a look. "How could you let trash like that bully you?" she hissed. I nodded and agreed. She was right. After the transfer of the properties was finalized, I took my mother up to the capital. The Millers thought I planned to stay in the county to do business and kept looking for opportunities to take advantage of me, not knowing I had already rented out all those assets. I signed 5-year lease contracts, timed to coincide with the city's coming boom. By then, those properties would be cash cows. By the time they discovered what I'd done and tried to find me, I would be impossible to trace. Credit where it's due. Aaron may be foolish in love, but he wasn't stupid in business. The share of property I was given was enough for me to live comfortably in the capital for a while. But I had bigger goals. If I'd been granted a second life, I intended to live it to the fullest. I wouldn't let my daughter remember me only as the woman who won a divorce. Thanks to connections I'd learned about in my previous life, I'd collected a lot of outside information. Beijing was the capital and the trendsetter, and everything that moved there was watched closely. If I wanted to make something of myself, Beijing was the best choice. Once I arrived in Beijing, I rented a house just outside Zhongwoman and took a stall on Tan Street as my first step. I needed to build relationships in foreign trade. After the reform and opening, foreign trade would be one of the biggest engines of growth. With the right channels and timing, making money would be easy. My second step was to use the rest of my savings, after reserving a little for sourcing goods and living expenses, to buy several Sawan courtyard houses in central Beijing. It was 1990 now. Buying a Sawan cost only a few tens of thousands of yuan. These courtyard houses were crowded and run down, and the old residents wanted to move elsewhere, so buying them wasn't difficult. But in a year or two their value would skyrocket. That's why I rushed the divorce and headed straight to Beijing. I had to complete these deals before property prices began to climb. I snapped up prime lots in the eastern and western outer rings, 6 han at once in well-laid-out positions. My mother's face went pale with worry as she watched me signing purchase contracts one after another. She kept urging me to stop spending. "Emma," she said, "keep some money. Don't buy any more of those rundown courtyard houses. You only need one place to live. Why buy so many? Those old courtyards look ready to collapse. The old brick house back home looks sturdier than these." I smiled and reassured her. "Don't worry, Mom. I know exactly what I'm doing. The location of these houses can't be compared to anywhere else. Their value will skyrocket faster than anyone imagines, and it won't stop." By the following summer, I had mastered the business scene around Tukin Street. Silk clothing and embroidered accessories made from premium silkworm threads were in high demand. Foreigners loved them and Chinese customers adored them too. I thought of Mrs. Wang, my old neighbor, whose hometown was famous for silkworm farming and exquisite embroidery. Her region produced top-grade silk and was known for its Wu embroidery. so detailed that flowers, birds, fish, and insects looked almost alive. But the market in our small town was still undeveloped, its name barely known outside the region. I decided to use that connection to build a brand, something that could earn money, and also promote the beauty of traditional Chinese craftsmanship. Around that time, my mother began to miss home, so we returned to T-City together. When my brother saw us, he just smiled sheepishly and said, "Emma, seeing you like this makes me so happy. Now I don't have to worry anymore." My sister-in-law, busy cooking up a table full of dishes, muttered as she worked, "I thought you were too soft to survive life on your own. Turns out all that worrying was a waste. Sit down and eat." My two little nephews were overjoyed to see their grandmother and me again. When they saw my daughter rosy-cheeked and adorable, they wanted to pinch her cheeks but didn't dare touch her. Finally they shouted, "Mom, have another baby, one just like her." My sister-in-law scolded them, "You two do nothing but eat and make trouble. You think I still have the strength to give you another sister?" Though she always sounded rough, she was incredibly gentle when holding my daughter. The tiger head shoes and little embroidered hat she made for her were exquisitely crafted. She even dressed my daughter to look like one of those chubby babies holding a carp in New Year paintings. I installed a landline at her house so we could stay in touch easily and bought my brother and sister-in-law each a BB pager. The entire village turned green with envy. My sister-in-law made a point of strutting from one end of the village to the other with her pager, showing it off proudly, finally making up for years of being looked down on. When a nosy villager sneered, "What's there to brag about? It's just because your sister married into the city," my sister-in-law shot back. "So what if I'm proud? If you've got the ability, have your sister buy you one too." Later, I went to find Mrs. Wang to talk about a business partnership. She was still hesitant. "Our county isn't exactly a major city," she said. "It's just a small town." I told her, "We're only doing a trial collaboration. Your side just provides the labor. I'll take the financial risk. Even if people start calling us capitalists and coming after someone, they'll come for me, not you. You'll just be a worker." Mrs. Wang's eyes filled with worry. "Emma, it's not that I'm trying to avoid responsibility. I'm just afraid you might get dragged down with us." I smiled. "Sister, the world outside has already changed beyond recognition. This little county will change soon too. Why spend a lifetime relying on a man who doesn't love you? It's better to take a chance and build something for yourself. What's the real risk here anyway?" Mrs. Wang had always been a straightforward, capable woman known in the village for her fairness and temper. But after years of being mistreated by her husband in the city, she'd lost her spark. Hearing my words seemed to rekindle something in her. "You're right, Emma," she said, her voice firm again. "We only get one life to live. Why let that bastard pull your strings any longer?" I said to Mrs. Wang, "Listen to me. Let's do this together. All I need from you is to keep the quality perfect. I want premium goods, the best silk, the finest thread, and embroidery so beautiful it takes your breath away." She nodded firmly. "Don't worry, Emma. If I've promised I'll deliver, I'll make sure every piece is top quality." 2 years passed, and my business on Tucan Street flourished beyond my wildest dreams. Our embroidered silk products became famous far and wide. Everyone praised them, and no matter how much I stocked, everything sold out instantly. I hired professional managers to oversee operations and handle foreign trade. The courtyard houses I'd bought were gradually renovated, and I brought in reputable real estate agents to manage them. I only needed to check the financial reports and decide on major strategies. I wasn't greedy, nor did I rush into expanding. I wanted more time with my daughter. Growing up without a father, she needed extra love, and I was determined to give her more than enough to fill that void. I invited my brother and sister-in-law to move to Beijing. I wanted my nephews to study in a better environment, and my brother and his wife were hard-working people. If they stayed idle, they'd feel restless. So, I opened a hometown-style restaurant and let them run it. My sister-in-law was a brilliant cook and even trained 5 apprentices who could rival graduates from the top culinary schools. My brother, honest and sincere, was loved by every customer who walked through the door. The restaurant wasn't the biggest in the city, but it was thriving. As for Mrs. Wang back in the county, her reputation was growing too. At first, her husband had felt embarrassed that she was running a business. He said it made him look bad. But the moment she threw her new brick-sized cell phone on the table in front of him, he shut his mouth for good. I asked her, "Now that you're financially independent, are you really going to stay with that man?" She sighed. "He's not good to me, but he loves our son dearly. And my boy loves his father too. If I divorce him, he'll remarry. And who knows how a stepmother would treat my son. If I take my son with me, he'll miss his dad. I just don't want him to suffer." I nodded. That's fair enough. At least the man still cares about his child. Then Mrs. Wong leaned closer and told me something shocking. "Did you hear? Aaron Miller and Lily Parker are divorced." I raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She continued, clearly relishing the gossip. When Lily gave birth to her son, the Millers noticed right away the baby didn't look like either of them, especially those ears pointed, sticking out like wings. Aaron took one look and realized they were identical to Lily's old boyfriends. He didn't even need a DNA test. Just a simple blood test was enough. Both parents were type A and O, but the child was type B. It was undeniable. Lily hadn't seemed to care. Divorce? Fine. She'd only married Aaron to have a child anyway. Afterward, she planned to head to Beijing to find that rich young man again, hoping to use the baby to trap him for good. But then something happened. That man's entire family was arrested for corruption and sent to forced labor camps. When Mrs. Wong told me that, I couldn't help the faint smirk tugging at my lips. Why were they arrested? Let's just say that's a story I won't admit to having any hand in. Lily was devastated. She didn't dare admit who the baby's real father was and couldn't stand the gossip that followed her everywhere. Living every day in fear, she eventually fell into severe postpartum depression. Not long after, she jumped from a building, ending her own life and leaving the baby behind to be raised by her elderly parents. As for Aaron Miller, after the scandal, he drowned himself in alcohol day and night. Once drunk, he confessed to Mrs. Wong that he regretted everything. "Emma was a good woman," he said. "I should never have betrayed her." But regret came too late. One night, driving drunk, he got into a serious accident and ended up paralyzed from the waist down, just like he once said to me when we divorced. "Aside from our daughter, you'll never have anything left." Now it seemed he was the one left with nothing at all. He truly had no heir left. His parents spent everything they had, traveling from hospital to hospital, desperate to cure him. But nothing worked. The once proud Millers had been reduced to two weary gray-haired elders pushing their paralyzed son in a wheelchair, faces drawn with despair. They feared what would become of him after they were gone. Eventually they tried to contact me, but by then I was no longer the woman they once knew. I had become a quiet but well-known investor in Beijing, the kind of person you couldn't just meet by asking. 15 years after our divorce, I often thought back to my previous life, to that night when my daughter and I died so tragically. The memory of my bones shattering beneath the truck's wheels still felt vivid, like a scar that never faded. I had never dared to forget it. Every time I looked at my daughter, I felt only gratitude that we were both still alive. I taught her to be independent, to love herself, and to never wait until it was too late to regret. Not everyone is granted the miracle of a second chance. In this life I understood what truly mattered: to live with kindness and integrity. Now that I had wealth, my daughter and I devoted ourselves to charity work. Life had given me another chance and I was determined to give something back in return.